Hello, my name is Lacey Folsom, and today we're discussing student development theories. The various development theories consist of stages of cognitive development by Piaget, stages of intellectual and ethical development by Perry, stages of knowing model by Baxter McGolda, vectors of identity development by Chickering, theory of student involvement by Aston, and student integration framework by Tinto. If we look at really probably the most foundational theory for student development theories, it's cognitive development theory by Jean Piaget. This theory, while primarily focused on younger children, is the first kind of concept of understanding that students continue to gain knowledge as they have more experiences and continue to observe and therefore gain knowledge through those observations. The impact of on higher education is if we really look at the formal operational stage. While Piaget claims that kids get to this stage at about 12 years of age, more modern research has found that it can be as late as 16 or 18, 20 years old before students are ever able to truly understand how to use logic and reasoning to form their opinions. Another really important part of cognitive development theory is that it proposed a student centered learning pedagogy that teachers needed to create and facilitate information for individual students, and that the student controlled what they needed to learn and at what stages they were learning. One way to apply this theory to higher ed is considering the very beginning of that experience or journey is with admissions. When students apply to a college, they're then placed into courses, either remedial, honors, or general courses based off of test scores. Whether or not they're even able to attend institutions of higher ed may result based off of these admissions. So testing is very student centered in the idea that the student then applies the information that they've understood and are able to be placed into different courses based off of their level of knowledge. More importantly, remembering that each student is different and that not everyone is going to be in the same level of course. Academic advising is a really great application of this theory as well, imagining that advisors have to understand the needs of the student and place them in courses that relate to that. Also, based off of what the student is interested in, they have to be connected to the material. So, which classes are they going to be most successful in that also relate to what they're wanting to do? So, they have a meaningful connection with that. This goes as far as selecting a major or even what class options, elective courses, focusing again on the student being able to make those decisions. Another theory is by William Perry, Intellectual and Ethical Development. In this theory, it really focused on undergrads or college age students. And so a set of interviews of Harvard undergraduates discovered that four positions of understanding emerged. These four categories are then divided into nine positions and really kind of go into a lot more detail. But the impact is that it was one of the first studies that included college students, Harvard college students. So likely that these students will have different learning categories than maybe your general state institution might. But the level of understanding at that age and students who are placed into an educational setting, this is very impactful theory. The outcome was that this theory encouraged educators to create opportunities for students to fail and then learn from that experience. So, a lot of theories like challenge and support, but kind of emerged out of this concept that students are going to learn from experiences, whether or not those experiences were positive or negative. What is their this learning opportunity for them? Applying this theory is again that encouraging students to participate in experiences outside of the classroom that challenge their own beliefs and make sure that they understand that even though they thought one way, they may end the outcome of that experience may make them think differently than how they entered that experience. Service learning is a really wonderful experience that does this, that has students go in to to an activity, a program, an experience, believing something, and then we're leaving with a different outcome, or further justifying what they went into, but they're usually changed through this service learning experience. Guest speakers, opportunities for students to be able to gain information from someone who has different beliefs than them, and transformational programming. This is any of those programs that have the intention of having students have learning through the program. A lot of academic programs are able to present uh, programming that has students work through different problems, different research, that then they result is learning from that set experience. Marcia Baxter Magolda, an educator, really kind of took the idea of this descriptive theories that were happening before with Perry and Paget and others, and wanted to be able to create some kind of prescriptive tools and methods, and helping educators not only understand the different stages of learning, but also be an active participant in helping facilitate that learning. So in the stages of knowing model, Baxter Magolda encourages the learner to have independence in drawing their own conclusions and applying that knowledge. But again, believes that the educator is a partner in this experience, that their role as an educator is to create and facilitate the experience that the students are then able to explore. The impact on directly on higher education is again that prescriptive approach, but also similar to previous, this is based off of a longitudinal study of undergraduates. And interestingly enough, I think what will impact future theories is that the outcomes of that study found that the relationships and living arrangements, even involvement in a student organization, plays a vital role in the intellectual development of college students. Directly applying this theory to higher education is first year experience program, remembering that students who are entering college for the first time are going to transition their understanding from a sense of high school, being told by an authority figure, this is what you need to understand, and really learn how to process new information. The same thing with senior seminars on the flip side, and the idea that a student is leaving college, and going into the workforce, and the learning that they had during this experience is now having to be applied and transition to a new set of skills. These can be done through leadership workshops. This understanding workshops are regular things that students can attend where they're learning about their own their self-authorship, their leadership skills, what is an authentic leader, what are their skills, and how do they apply them into future things. Living learning communities, if we're looking at the students who are living on campus in the residence halls, how do you create a community and network that allows students to learn where they're living? Maybe even putting all nursing majors in the same location, so they're then able to build not only networks, but also learn from one another, maybe creating study halls or having professors come in the evenings to lead unique programming that is for students who have that set of skills and interests. Identity development theory. This is a theory that kind of has evolved over time. Chickering created this early in the 70s, but later revisited it with the help of Linda Reiser in the 90s, as it was becoming more aware that students' identities also included their social identities, like racial and ethnics and sexual identities, and how to incorporate those into how students understand about themselves and how they are impacted maybe different than the person sitting beside them. So Chickering, though, did believe that students would move fluidly between the vectors, which is different than previous concepts, meaning that they can move forward, they can move backward based off of whatever experience it is. And maybe they feel confident in one kind of experience and they are consistently moving forward, but placed into a different experience where there's maybe some sense of overwhelming or just some hesitation or anxiety, they may move backwards among this vector of different identities. The impact, I think, for higher education is that it's realizing that students are impacted by how they think about the world, and it will help student affairs practitioners identify what their needs are, and provide appropriate support. Again, really focusing on how their identity is. So, applying that theory is that leadership programming that is based off of values inventory, having students actually put onto paper what are my values and prioritizing those, and then connecting them with the actions that they're doing while they're in college. If you value family and you value integrity, then when you work on your homework, are you doing it as a group, or are you working on your own? Are you reading the material ahead of time? Like really thinking about connecting actions with the words and the identities that they're claiming to have. Um, Also, when assessing the impact of student success, demographics makes a larger impact if we're considering Chickering's identity theory, which now says that a male and a female student may have different experiences on campus. And then even more so, a student who identifies with a different sexual identity, or are students of color. Those are different experiences than our white Caucasian students. So understanding that social identity plays a large role, it increases base programming that is for social identity specifically. Maybe groups that are specific to genders, groups that support students of a specific race or a faith. And so you're really kind of starting to see student organizations using this theory to be able to support students as the individuals that they are. The next would be Alexander Aston's theory of student involvement. Now, Aston proposed that yes, your academic experience is going to have a obvious connection to your success in college, but also that your sense of belonging has almost just as much of a impact on your retention, the likelihood that you're going to continue to stay on course. Aston believed that there was three concepts to be considered if you're going to be retained through graduation. First, educators should realize that students come to college with baggage. They come with experiences. They come with beliefs that they feel very strongly about before they even walk into the doors of a higher education institution. Next is what students experience when they're at college. And that's really where student affairs comes in. What experience are you facilitating for students to have while they're on your college campuses? And then finally, what outcomes the student will leave college with. What are they taking from their experiences on campus? Do they know how to articulate that to future employers? Do they know how to apply that to future problems in their lives? What skills are they getting from the experience they have with you throughout their college career? The impact obviously is on higher education. This was created specifically for college, but that this was a student focused theory that encouraged institutions to provide specific resources that intentionally impact student transformation. That you're not just creating programs that are going to meet every student's needs, but specifically thinking, what does the student need? What will this student need to be successful? And then creating and curating specific programs that will help this. Also, a large part of what ended up coming out of this Aston's theory is the relationship students can have with educators, really focusing on mentorship and their connection to feeling like they're part of something bigger than just themselves, which I think really speaks to student success on campus. Applying this theory is, of course, mentorship programs, specifically in this situation, looking at faculty and staff to student mentorship, where students feel I am connected specifically to this person. If I have a question, I don't have to worry. I can reach out to my mentor. A lot of times, academic advisors serve as a mentor, whether or not they realize it intentionally or not. But this is the only person that is not necessarily teaching them in a classroom like curriculum based, but someone that they can go to and ask questions and not feel overwhelmed by feeling the need to already know those answers. A really great way to help build relationships between students and faculty and staff is having those faculty and staff serve as organization advisors. So connecting what students are doing outside the classroom with what they are doing inside the classroom. And even if not directly, showing that the faculty and staff appreciate what their interests are and want to help support that. Faculty sponsored research, where faculty are helping students work through the research, maybe working on their own project and having students participate in that. Having students work inside the individual departments as campus employees is a really wonderful way for students to be able to connect with faculty and staff and see them as the humans that they are, and not just the teaching robots that they may be feel like in the front of a classroom. Their care and concern efforts by faculty and staff is really felt by students, and more so ever before, with mental health being one of the largest concerns for college educators. Is if a professor sends an email or gives a phone call to someone who's missing class on a regular basis and checking in on them, that connection, the idea that someone is there to hold them accountable, someone is there to check in on them, is really important for student development. Extending office hours, not just there to answer clarifications of a syllabus, but also there to help discuss maybe a topic that was over in class a little bit more in depth, or to feel like students can share one-on-one with a professor, maybe their own feelings or ideals or questions that they have about what the content of the class made them think and feel. And engaging on campus. This is really important for student affairs practitioners to remember, that faculty need to be involved maybe in orientation programs and having them give presentations so students are seeing them outside of the classroom, asking faculty to be judges in different activities or programs that are happening that are maybe socially based, but faculty are being able to be brought in to just be opportunities for networking, or maybe even bringing in them for their expertise. So maybe you're having a music competition and you bring in a music professor. Vincent Tinto's student integration framework is, again, very impactful on higher education, specifically created for college students. The integration framework suggests that students' success is influenced by their commitment to the institution, academic and career goals, connecting everything that they're doing on campus with their own goals, whether that be academic or social. What are they wanting from this experience? How does the college or campus community connect them to their goals? His work continues to impact how institutions prioritize research and resources to meet the needs of the different student populations. This approach is definitely much more holistic than maybe earlier development theories, because it focuses on how institutions can curate services to meet the students' needs. And some ways that they could do that is creating student success courses, maybe for those first year students, or even for sophomore students, so that as you're assessing and seeing where the needs are in your students, creating courses that aren't necessarily there to teach a specific curriculum, but to instead help students navigate the college experience. Student life programs, of course, that your student affairs areas that are putting on events. It's more than just creating events that entertain students. It's about creating opportunities that give students an experience that they couldn't get inside of this community that they live in without student life bringing those. So challenging status quo by maybe bringing different people from different cultures and have different opinions, and bringing those to students so students can explore their own feelings about that, or challenging them to participate in something that they normally would not have participated in, creating poetry slams that encourage students to write their poetry and then perform that, and look to see what experiences that they're going to have on campus that will change them. Student organizations where they're able to serve in leadership roles and manage their peers, and also complete projects that they are emotionally connected to. Support services also serve a really important when we look at Tinto's theory, when we're curating services. So if counseling is very important, is it one-on-one counseling? Is it group counseling? Is it counseling for specific communities of populations of people? Addressing marginalized populations, meaning if we have mental health affecting our students of color in more ways than we are other students, and we're seeing that in assessment, how are we able to create support services specifically addressing those issues? Here is where peer-to-peer mentoring programs really come into focus where we're looking at how do we take students who are maybe upperclassmen and pairing them with underclassmen, and based off of their social identities or not, how are we connecting them to a network that is bigger than just themselves. Orientation and transition programs kind of fall within all of these, but specifically, how do we take students and help them navigate the process of getting into college and through college, and creating mentorships, and knowing what all these resources are, putting them in a room and bringing these resources to them to say, hey, we are here for you. That's really happens a lot of time at our orientation programs. Social media networks is kind of a modern version of how this theory can be applied. Networking is really important. How can students connect with the university almost in a 24/7 world? If we look at specifically institutions that have a presence on social media, students are able to contact them any time of the day and be able to either receive information directly from a representative of that university, and or in a crowdsourcing function, asking people who go to school there to give feedback on something. Social spaces, physical social spaces also is a really great way of applying this concept of how do we create spaces and opportunities for students to learn and connect with the university. Maybe if they're living on campus, we create lobbies and study areas where students are able to go and meet their needs. You cannot sit in your room by yourself forever and feel fulfilled. And so, where are these fulfillment spaces in the residence halls where students are able to go and either relax, find stress free activities, healthy things, or even connect socially with friends, playing games and things of that sort? Same things happen within the community, the campus community, either through student life programs, but also through buildings like your campus recreation or your student center, where there are spaces and activities and programs going on that challenge students to get to know one another and get to know faculty and staff and get to know themselves, or just to chill and hang out and learn about connecting with other people. Overall, all of these theories obviously play such a large role in the success of students, as well as various and countless other theories that directly impact student retention on a college campus. There's this quote here that tell me and I forget, teach me and I remember, involve me and I learn. And I think it really speaks to the concepts of student development theories. Yes, we want students to understand as they're learning, but that learning is not just learning something from a book or from a presentation. That learning is something that they're experiencing with hands-on heart, and they're emotionally connected to what they're doing. And that is what student affairs does, is create and facilitate experiences that make students learn.